Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I'm here to recommend some horror books for all of you scaredy cats that are always scared to pick up horror books, because I want to encourage you guys to try and join me on the dark side.
It's coffee time!
So the other day, Baby Buck Books, who has a booktube channel, tagged me in one of her videos, and it was a experiment that she did trying to read horror even though she's very easily scared. So she found some books by some horror booktubers, including myself, that she thought she could try as a newbie that wanted to get into horror. And so I thought, why don't I make a video about books, horror books that scaredy cats can try out, and books that are kind of like accessible to more readers. So here we are today, and I'm bringing you 8 book recommendations. Many people might be asking themselves, can someone like me, a scaredy cat, afraid of everything, read horror? Yes, you can. That is my answer. Yes, you can. You just have to find your level of comfortable when it comes to horror. And I also think you should, because horror is something that allows us to push our boundaries, to get out of our comfort zone, and most important of all, sometimes it helps us to face our own fears. Horror books can be very different from each other, so if you are an adult and you want to get into horror, please do not think that the only type of books that you can read are middle grade or YA books. As an adult that is scared of a lot of things, you can still read horror. There's many books out there that are dark and atmospheric and creepy, or just that have a little bit of something eerie. You don't need to read books that are all out disturbing and gory. There is so much more to horror. My goal with this channel has always been to introduce people to horror, to recommend horror books and now horror movies to all different types of readers. If you want to read middle grade or YA because that's what you're comfortable with, fantastic. You do you. If you want to try adult horror but you're scared it's going to be too much for you, or you don't want to pick a book that is perhaps too disturbing or too gore, too bloody, then I'm here to help today with this video. We all have different levels of tolerance. We all have certain content warnings that we want to avoid. We all have our limits. That is perfectly normal. I think in life, with friendships, with everything, even at work, you need to know your limits and set them and protect yourself. So only read things that you're comfortable with, but you can still try to read horror even if you're a scaredy cat. And now let's go to my 8 horror book recommendations, and I have tried to pick books that are very different from each other because I hope that in this video there's something for everybody. If you want to start reading Stephen King but you are a scaredy cat, you can try The Long Walk by Stephen King, which is arguably one of his less horror books that still packs a punch. Every year, 100 boys enter something called The Long Walk, and out of the 100, only one wins and the other 99 lose, but the one that wins gets anything he wants. The only downside is you are not able to stop for absolutely anything, and you also cannot break the rules because there's going to be very serious consequences. This is more dystopian than horror, but it is a book that gets you really invested in the characters and you really truly care for them. The story is quite simple. It's basically that you have the long walk, 100 boys, only one wins, but it is very tense, very intriguing, and you're gonna get really attached to the characters. However, this is a long-ish book for, the simple story, so hopefully it doesn't drag too much for you guys, but I felt like for myself, because I was so invested in the characters and I wanted to know what was going to happen to them, I was really hooked. This is a book that Stephen King started writing when he was 18, and let me tell you, it has a little bit of the Hunger Games in it. This is going to be perfect for people that want to start full season reading something thrilling, but at the same time, very heartfelt. Another one you can try by Stephen King if you want to get into his books but you're afraid they're going to be too scary for you is Joyland. This is a short one and I also felt like it was kind of easy in the horror part of it, so it's another one that you could potentially try if you want to get into Stephen King. If you want cozy horror with ghosts, pick basically almost anything by Darcy Coates. The one I'm going to recommend you has been my favorite so far by the author, and it's The Haunting of Ashborne House. I've mentioned this one multiple times already on my channel because I feel like this is such a good classic haunted house story, really accessible for a lot of types of readers and a great way of starting your journey into supernatural slash paranormal horror. In this atmospheric Gothic tale, we follow a young woman that has inherited a mansion from a relative, and she decides to move in there with her cat because it is her only choice. She needs a place to stay, so this is like God sent for her. But when she moves in there, she starts to feel things inside of the house. Things are moving, shadows, noises. You know the drill when it comes to haunted places. Once Adrienne, our young woman, moves into the house, she starts to discover more and more about her aunt, Edith, who left this house for her. And if you read this book and you are a cat lady like me, you probably can assume that the author has or has had cats, because the way that she describes the relationship between Adrienne and her cat is exactly right. And if you have a cat, you're going to love to see that. After Adrienne meets people from town, she starts to question who her aunt was and what secrets are hidden inside of this house. It was a great story with some family drama, but also kind of claustrophobic because the majority of the book takes place inside of this house and Adrienne exploring it, and it was very eerie and atmospheric. But I think this is potentially a good introduction for people that love haunted houses but are scared to try an adult book. So you want some sci-fi in your horror? I got you. We have The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. Our main character has accepted a new job. She's not really thrilled about it, but she needs the money to travel to a different planet in order to try to find her mother. So this job that she has accepted is basically a job in which she will go underwater through caves and tunnels, and she's supposed to be mapping the caves so that they can see where the minerals are that can be subtracted from underwater and stuff like that. But we all know that it's not gonna go really well because this is also a horror tale. So our main character is going to be lost, stuck inside of these caves. She thinks she starts to see stuff, and it's very, very claustrophobic because she is inside of these caves. I think this book worked so well for me because I have kind of a fear of really tight spaces, especially underwater. It's a big no-no for me. So I think this is gonna work really well for people that have the same fear because it's very effective, but it's still not too much that is overwhelming. This is the perfect mixture of psychological horror and sci-fi, and I also flew through this one. And normally I don't read so much sci-fi because sometimes it can be a little bit dry for my taste, but this one was fantastic. So you want to read horror with creatures? I also got you. You can read The Watchers by A.M. Shine, which is a book that I read this year myself, and I think this is a very accessible book to people that haven't tried horror or people that like horror but have never tried a creature feature. We follow Mina, and she is traveling to make a delivery when her car breaks down in a road in the middle of nowhere surrounded by woods, and exactly at the point where the car stops there is problems with the reception, but not just for her mobile phone. The car stops working. Nothing that is electric or connected to the internet works. So she has to step out of the car, walk through the woods, try to find a cabin, try to find someone that has a working phone so she can call for help. She does not find a regular cabin. She finds kind of like a bunker, a shelter, and a woman screaming to her to run inside before it's too late. And so Mina runs and gets into the shelter and gets introduced to the different characters that live in there that warn her that there is something in the woods that they have to hide from. They have to be very careful because these creatures only come out at night. This book is told through different POVs from the different characters that are inside of this bunker, and I thought it was really well executed, and the tone of the book changes after the first half, but I do believe that this was a very interesting fresh take on the typical creature feature. It is similar to Bird Box if you read the book and enjoyed it and you want to try something new. So I hope that you enjoy this one if you pick it up. I really did. I thought it was really cool because it was something a bit new, and I enjoyed the ending a lot as well, which, you know, it's something that might be a hit or a miss for some readers. But I think this book is great if you want to get introduced to horror with creatures. So you want to have some fun with your horror? Of course, then try My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is someone that does a wonderful job to introduce weird, quirky, fun, humorous things inside of his horror. And I think My Best Friend's Exorcism is kind of like one of the best examples for that. And it's also a lot of people's favorite. So I think if you were to be introduced to Grady Hendrix, this might be a great book to start with. This book was inspired by the Satanic Panic from the 80s and the rumors of people killing babies and doing satanic rituals in their basements. And there's also a movie adaptation that I thought was just okay, but I still enjoyed the book a lot more, so do give the book a chance first. Abby and Gretchen are best friends and they are having a great summer together, and they go to a house at the lake with other friends to enjoy the summer and the lake. But then Gretchen that night goes missing. They think that she got lost, they don't know what happened to her, but when she returns, Gretchen is changed. Something is wrong with her, and Abby fears that something might have possessed her best friend. The setting was great because you get so much of the 80s infused in the book, from references to music, a lot of cool stuff. It is set in a high school, so we go through the awkward process of, you know, becoming a teenager and merging from a teenager to an adult, but it's also about possession. There is also some humor infused in the story, but there's also a lot of horror tropes in this book, but they are introduced in a very smart way. You can tell the author knows the tropes, loves horror, loves the tropes, and is using them in a fun way. So I think this is very accessible for a lot of different type of readers. So you want to try something Gothic? Okay, let's go with Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And this is a book that truly feels like your classic Gothic stories, but also is a book quite similar to Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I think that's part of why I ended up enjoying it so much. From the very first chapter, you're going to be dragged into the story, you're going to be immersed in this world, and the book really achieves this creepy, eerie atmosphere from the true classic Gothic tales. Noemi is sent by her father to check on her cousin Catalina. Catalina has married a man that they've never met before, and now Catalina has sent them a letter asking for help. So Noemi has to go and check on her cousin and see what's going on, and finally get to meet the husband. On her way to this palace where her cousin lives, Noemi has a lot of doubts and questions about the family that her cousin has married into, but when she gets there, they tell her that Catalina is sick, she has some sort of weird illness, and that's why she's kind of delirious and writing these things and asking for help, but she's actually okay, she's just a little bit sick. Noemi gets to meet the family and stay in the residence, and a lot of creepy things are going to happen. I think this book excels in atmosphere and creepiness, but it is fairly slow burn for the first 2/3, and the third one, of course, it picks up, and that's when we get a resolution of everything that's going on, which is very typical for Gothic fiction. But I would like to say this book was fantastic. It was great. It's also great to pick up during fall, to go into that fall season or winter. So if you like Dracula, for example, or you like Gothic stories in general, this is a great choice for you. So you want to try a classic? Of course! Then you can try The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I think this book excels on the atmosphere again and the eeriness, and it's not meant exactly to be extremely scary, even though there is a big scary scene, but the rest is just about the atmosphere. This book is one of the last bloodless classic tales before the 1960s came around and we started reading more and more books with more and more blood. So it's perfect for people that don't want a lot of blood in their books. So the Hill House is a house that gets rented for a summer because they want to invite people that investigate the supernatural, the paranormal, and they want to let them stay in the house to try to figure out if there's something supernatural in it. This is a creepy and psychological mystery, and you're going to see the characters that they're very different from each other get into that house. The house will start affecting them in a different way, and it's a great psychological horror for everybody, for all those scaredy cats. It's one of those books that is full of suspense, of tension, and also one of those books that is going to make you question everyone's sanity in the book, and you're going to question if whatever they're experiencing is real or if they have just lost their minds, hence the psychological horror part of things. But you're telling me that you want to read a true psychological horror through and through. I also got you. We have here for you A Headful of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This is the story of a family that's being torn apart after their teenage daughter starts to exhibit signs of possession. This is very much a family drama in which the parents believe their teenage daughter is possessed by a demon. In this novel, you get to peek into this family's lives. You get to experience what they're going through as their 14-year-old daughter starts to exhibit really disturbing and weird behavior. Now, this is a very slow burning story, but I feel like the majority of possession, demon, exorcism kind of movies are, and books. So it's something that if you like the genre already, you kind of know that this is probably the way they're gonna approach it. The parents don't know what to do, so they turn to the church for help, and that's when the story becomes kind of a more of a classic possession slash exorcism story. What makes this book a little bit different is that the family is offered to record their lives almost as a TV show and to see how the daughter changes, which is very creepy to think, okay, my daughter is going through this, we don't know what's wrong with her, and then we put her in a 24-hour kind of like reality TV show. So this book is basically a family's descent into madness, and therefore a good example of psychological horror. And those were, you guys, my 8 book recommendations for scaredy cats. For those of you that find horror books very intimidating, very scary, and you want to start with something that it is a little bit more approachable. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. If you want more recommendation of this type of books for horror beginners, let's say, because I'm hoping you're all going to start picking up more horror books. I thank you guys so much for all your support. If you want to support me and the channel, consider joining my Patreon as well. The link is in the description down below. And I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!